Greetings and welcome to The Thirsty Mage, the podcast that journeys through various lands and time periods to bring you the greatest in RPG goodness. I'm your host, Paige Chamberlain, and today we'll be doing an in-depth spoiler cast on the latest HD 2D hit, Live Alive. So if you've yet to experience it for yourself, download and save this episode for another day. We've got a story to spoil. With me tonight is someone who is barely keeping his head above the water of a game review tidal wave. It's Jordan Rudick.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just going from one review to the next, and I've put Xenoblade on hold, and I'm very excited to go back to that. But yeah,
Did you just post a new review just before we started?
I literally posted a review at 3 p.m. It was an embargo. I'm going to talk about that game in a little bit, but yeah, I posted a game review. The embargo is odd. 3 p.m. Pacific time is an odd time for reviews. Usually they come out in the morning. We already had a Splatoon 3 preview that came out today, a review of a little Metroidvania called Islets that came out today, and then this is the third kind of video we've put out today. So a lot of content for today, but a lot of review embargoes for next week too. So I don't know if you're working on any review games right now, but I feel like I've got my hands full.
The only ones I've got are ones that I picked up ages ago that I have to catch up on before.
Sure.
Nothing new. Yeah.
I feel like I have a mix of both. Like I have a couple that with deadlines of next week, but then yes, a few from like a month ago or so, or a few weeks ago that just didn't have time for, and just trying to catch up with now. So yeah, we'll see how much I can get done before I'm heading to PAX West. Not this weekend, but the weekend after, the long weekend. So looking forward to that. You've been to PAX in Australia, I think, Paige.
Yeah, I have. Right? Yeah.
When was the last time they held that one? I don't even know.
The last time it was held was 2019, and I went in 2018.
Okay.
So I think this year they're doing it again, but it's like a week before my due date, so I'm not.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it's not a good idea to go.
No, yeah, I don't want to.
Plus, I don't know about standing in those lines for like 2 hours to play.
Oh
a Nintendo
no,
demo.
that's not comfortable.
But last year they said they were going to do it, and they cancelled it again. I was annoyed because that was going to be the honeymoon, basically.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Is it close to where you live? Is it a fair drive? Would you stay over there? Okay.
Yeah. So, and last time it was at the same time as a work thingy, so I actually did a plane trip, which was faster, but then I couldn't buy as much stuff because of luggage.
Yes, restrictions. Yeah, I always look forward to seeing like all the stuff that's there, not just the games to play, but like all the merch booths that are set up. Like I often try to check out some new video game music, or people that do renditions of game music. I like that stuff. I'll try to buy like a CD or a flash drive with some of their songs on it to support some of the artists there. But
yeah, the only thing I didn't like about them PAX Oz was that there was like some stores and stuff, but there's no artist alley like a lot of other conventions have.
Yeah, right, okay.
So that was, I think, the main disappointing thing. Otherwise, everything was pretty good. And that year was like before Smash came out, so got to play that.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Most of the other Nintendo demos weren't really worth being in line for 2 hours to play 5 minutes of.
No. Yeah, some of those lines are just brutal.
I was like, you're better off just going to play like some other company's games or something, because then at least you get 20 minutes with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what I like the best about PAX, is just seeing indie games that I had no idea about, or that we didn't get PR email about because they're pretty small, or they're just kind of starting out, and just kind of making a list, almost a mental list of like, oh, this game would be awesome if it came to Switch, or maybe if I ever get a Steam Deck, I'll check out this game. But just kind of seeing, what people are working on and talking to some of the devs, that are kind of doing the whole thing, right? They're setting up the demo, they are doing PR and marketing and everything for their games. It's nice to just talk to people and see kind of what is the creative drive or process behind what they've brought to the show. So always like to meet people there, chat about those things, and just see, try to find some hidden gems that maybe haven't been talked about too much.
Yeah, and there's also just like lots of other things going on. Not sure if they do any food challenges in the American one, but the common one in PAX Oz was the Maximum Smash, which is like a sort of ice cream. I think it's a sandwich, and so basically they're kind of doing a little sponsor thing, and basically trying to eat it as fast as you can.
Oh, right. That sounds cool. No, I don't know if there's any food challenges. I mean, there's lots
Yeah.
of panels and shows, but I'd have
Yeah.
to keep my eyes open for something like that.
Yeah, I went that year. I went because some YouTubers I like came to Australia, as I
Okay,
went to all their panels, and
nice.
had a friend who entered a Bomberman tournament, like the Switch game.
Yes.
They'd never played Bomberman before, and they were third place.
Oh,
So
awesome. Yeah.
yeah,
I love Bomberman. I love Bomberman tournaments too.
so
That's something I don't really get to experience at PAX because I'm so busy running around either doing coverage or just playing the games or hanging out with my friends that I usually go with a group of 3 other people. I just don't have time for the tournaments. Like I'd love to get into some of the board game tournaments or
yeah,
some of the video game ones, but just no time. I feel like you kind of have to pick your battles when you go there because sometimes there's just so many things to see and do. You'll run out of time if you try to do everything.
yeah. Right. Well, that's. I was like, I don't know because it's probably going to be super busy this year. But I was thinking for people to go to Paxos, I recommend if you want to do demos, do it like Friday or Sunday because Saturday's the
Yeah.
busiest day.
Yeah, Friday is a good time. It goes for PAX West. They go to Monday as well, and Monday can be a really good time because it's a holiday, but not for everybody. So usually, if there's lineups are going to be shorter on the Monday for sure. There are still badges available for PAX West, which is odd. I know in 2019 that would and before that that would never been the case. Like badges sold out kind of instantly. So for badges to still be available for what is normally a very big show, I'm thinking it's just not going to be super busy, which is good for me. Like if I'm I'm going to be at the show Saturday and Sunday. If anyone's at PAX West and wants to hit me up, just hit me up on Twitter at Rissan64. Let me know. Happy to meet listeners of the Mage. But I am going to be running around a lot doing coverage, so I do what I can. But yeah, I'm just going on the Saturday and Sunday, which are usually the 2 busiest days. So if all the badges haven't been sold out yet, that makes me feel like, oh, maybe it won't be too crazy when I'm there. So that's nice as well.
So you getting all your reviews out so you can get to this on time.
That's part of it. Is I know I'm going to be having to do preview coverage for the games I play, in addition to the Nintendo's going to be there. So I've got a couple big appointments with them. But yeah, just don't want to have too much on the plate before I leave because that weekend is going to be so busy. It'd be nice to just get through a couple more reviews before I leave for the show. So yeah, I've got one that posted today, so that was nice. I've got 1 or 2 more I'm going to try to finish. I got to grab some footage for Kirby's Dream Buffet? Is that the name? I kind of got lost in the shuffle with that one. I got a code for it. I'm going to grab some footage for Neil so he can do a video review. I'm going to try to do that tonight, but I just feel like every night I've got some kind of NWR responsibility to take care of. I haven't even set up all my appointments for PAX either, so I gotta get back to the email inbox and start setting up some of those too. So yeah, busy.
So, do you want to tell us about a game you've reviewed recently?
Yeah. So I'd be happy to. So I just posted this one this afternoon, and it's a review of SD Gundam Battle Alliance. Gundam Battle Alliance is a action RPG, third-person game. It's set in kind of an alternate reality, so you don't necessarily need to know too much about Gundam to enjoy at least the gameplay part. But the story and the actual mobile suits from Gundam that appear are from, like 24, 25 different series. So anyone who's very intimately familiar with Gundam as a franchise, as a universe, would probably, would recognize characters and mobile suits and things like that, maybe even places and events. So I think they'd get a lot out of it. For me, like I don't know a ton about Gundam. Like I know of it. I've probably seen a little bit of it. But not every Gundam property has come to the West either. So not all of it's left Japan. So for probably one of the reasons I never got super into it. But I have played a couple of the games. I've seen some of the shows or the videos of Gundam. And I like it fine enough. I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm a fan, but I certainly don't hate it or anything like that. But I like this game. It's fun. It's got a good loop. The missions are very short. It's kind of, you're just going through different 3 to 5 or 6 minute missions where you're destroying enemy mobile suits and then fighting a boss at the end.
So is it an action game or?
Yeah. So it's a real time action game. Like you are, it's a hack and slash to an extent, but you have swords, you have hammers, you have guns, rocket launchers, dash attacks. Like every mobile suit that you get has kind of a different arsenal. You have like a heavy and a light melee attack, and then you'll have a couple of ranged attacks and maybe something to close the gap between you and the enemies that you're fighting. You bring in partner characters that have their own mechs and abilities. The partner characters can level up as well, in addition to you leveling up, which gives you different perks. You can spend credit that you earn during missions to improve your mobile suits. So you can improve like their health, their boost or stamina meter, their ranged attack or their melee attacks. You can kind of customize them a little bit in terms of whether they're a little bit more tanky, faster, or have more stamina, or if they're better at ranged combat or not. The mobile suits come in different kind of flavors. You have some that are all round, some that are better at ranged combat, some that are better at melee combat.
Did you say if you like play as one at a time, or you can swap between them?
So you play every mission you play as one, but you can swap that one at the end of every mission when you start a new one. You can swap your partner's characters as well.
During a mission.
No, not mid mission. That'd be pretty cool if you could like even switch into your partners. You can give them commands to just unleash their special attacks that kind of charge up over time, but otherwise you don't really have control of them. They will heal you if you get knocked out. You have 3 to 5 kind of medical kits. If your health is going low, you can restore it. Or if you get knocked out, you can use a medical kit as well.
You just put the Band-Aid on the giant mech.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, Band-Aid, a little bit of medicine or something.
The SD size, the Band-Aid is probably big enough to...
That's right. It's a big mechanical Band-Aid. You just slap it on and you're good to go. No, there's actually a little meter that has to fill up before you actually use the kit. So you can be interrupted from that by an enemy. So you got to kind of fly away to somewhere safe. You can dash. You can fly a little bit in this game too, which is cool. It feels good to play. Like it feels fun. It's satisfying. The fact that the missions are really short, I think, is a big plus here. That there isn't a ton of variety to them, but the fact that they're really short and kind of quick to hammer out. And you get that good cycle of, finish a mission, spend your money to improve your suit, and then in the next mission, notice that, your guns are stronger or your sword is stronger, or you can just take more hits before you need to use a medical kit. Like all of that feels good. There's guarding. There is, again, a meter that charges up that allows you to do like a super move. All of it just feels good as kind of third-person action games can do. The fact that it's, Gundam is going to be appealing to some people. Didn't super appeal to me, whether this was Gundam or not. But you unlock new suits so regularly, which is pretty cool. You pick up blueprints in every mission that you finish, and it'll build towards unlocking a new suit. And generally, new suits also come with new partner characters as well. So, and then they'll have their own strengths and weaknesses too. So
even though you didn't like Gundam, did the gameplay make you interested? Not in Gundam, but as in to play it.
Yeah, I mean, I think playing this game actually makes me more interested in Gundam. Like, I didn't come in knowing a lot about it, but and I should say I like the suits. I like the kind of the they're called mobile suits, MSs, the kind of the robots that you hop into that you're fighting in, that you're piloting. Like, I like seeing them. The designs are cool. Unlocking new ones was neat, and then going to check out their stats and kind of see which maybe missions they'd be better suited towards, or just trying them all out was pretty cool. I've got a couple dozen unlocked at this point, and I'm sure there's more to go. You can go back to missions because there's these things called chaos missions that open up that let you do like harder versions of them. You can drop the difficulty down from normal to easy if you want a little bit less of a challenge, or if you're struggling with a mission. I did that on a couple ones, and it is a good kind of noticeable bump or decrease, I suppose, in the challenge level. But every level tells you like kind of what is the recommended level for your mobile suit and pilot to be, so you have an idea of where you need to get to, or maybe you have to go back and grind out credit a little bit before you go back to a harder mission. So everything about the gameplay works for me. The camera is a little bit wonky. I didn't love the camera. The story is kind of it's not a mess, but it's hard to figure out. It's hard to get into, I think. There's a lot of dialogue during the cutscenes. You can skip it if you want to, or fast forward. But it's all Japanese voices. And it's one of those games where there's also dialogue during the missions, a lot of it actually. And they're kind of speaking to you in Japanese, but the subtitles on the screen are in English, and you're trying to read the subtitles while also playing a somewhat intense action game, you can't really do both. So that was kind of
Oh,
a misfire for me. It does that
I really
thing
hate
where
that with like the Warriors games, because
yes,
aside
yes.
from the crossover, most of them haven't been in English, like, well, not English voice acting, aside from
Hmm.
some of the property ones.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that's really important because you want to know, I got to go over to this spot because there's trouble or something, but I can't take my eyes off what I'm the fight.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's the same. It's the same thing here. That you have a game where they're asking you to do kind of two things with your eyes that are very contradictory to each other. So, yeah, during the missions, I really wasn't paying attention to the story. I just think it's too tough to enjoy the gameplay while also following what's being said. Again, if you speak and understand Japanese, spoken Japanese, like that's going to be good for you because you can just listen to what the story beats are in the actual missions themselves while you're doing the gameplay. But for me, yeah, I couldn't appreciate that side of it. So I gave it a 7.5. I think it's fun. I believe there is a demo. I didn't get a chance to try the demo before the game, so I'm not sure how much it offers. But really, any demo, if it even just shows you a couple of missions, you'll get a sense of what the game is. It doesn't change very much as you play your way through. The difficulty does ramp up gradually, and again, it does kind of ask you at points to go back and maybe build up a few credits or go and try these harder chaos missions, because that's another way that you can unlock new suits as well. But yeah, overall, just a fun time, and I was actually kind of surprised by how much I ended up liking it. And if all the more if you're a Gundam fan, I think.
Hmm.
What about you, Paige? Have you been? I know you were posting a little bit about Splatoon on your Twitter. I saw.
Yeah, I was playing some Splatoon 2 last night because people are excited for like, what Splatfest is this weekend.
That's right. Yeah.
And then in less than 2 weeks, well, about 2 weeks, so Splatoon 3 will be out. So we played some multiplayer on like the private lobbies. As someone who pretty much only played Turf War, we actually played some of the ranked mode versions, which I think I played, maybe like one of them, but I never play ranked because I just stress about, your level going up and down, I think, instead of just being able to enjoy the games. But I actually really like the game modes because we played a few of each. So,
Mm-hmm.
so I like it. Yeah, I definitely played, maybe at least once, so I sort of knew what I was doing. Except for, I think Clan Blitz, where I actually had to go through a grade because I couldn't throw, so I wasted a bunch of clans. But we had some good ones where we still managed to win, or at least not get wiped out immediately. Which is like, I've got one clip where it was like the Rainmaker. It's like sort of a take it to the other person's base mode, and it can shoot some cannons. But like, when it's first not claimed, you got to shoot at it enough to explode the shield over it. And if the other team does that and you're standing near it, you die.
Right.
And
Yes.
and all of us were standing in front of it, so we got wiped out at the start, and they nearly won like immediately, but we managed to stop them from. So it was really fun to try out like the actual other modes because they're all going to be in Splatoon 3.
Yeah. Hey, did you play Splatoon 2 at launch, or have you been playing
Yeah,
it regularly, or just getting back to it now? Like, what's your Splatoon 2 experience been?
I've lost my save data about 2-3 times
Oh no,
because
that sucks.
they fixed it, and I don't know when they fixed it, but when Splatoon 2 first launched, it was one of the few like it's still no cloud save, but like it was one of the few Switch games that does not support physical data transfer. So when I had like my Switch broke and I transferred my account, so most of my game saves came over, Splatoon didn't. And then that same, and then after the Switch got fixed, it broke again. So I just got a new Switch, so I lost that. And I used to have a Switch Lite, and they don't. Again, that's like two completely different saves as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
So I'm like level 9, despite the fact that I've definitely played more than that. So it's just funny being in like the levels, and you're like, yeah, you're just like,
Like
oh,
playing against other like level 9 players, yet you were maybe like level 30 or 40 before, or something like that.
So I've lost my save data multiple times.
Yeah.
In the new one, they said it's like the online stuff will be saved on the server.
Yes, I remember reading that. That's good.
So at least you won't lose that.
And I think there's some carryover as well. If
Yes.
you've played Splatoon 2, you can carry over your save data to get some kind of bonus in the weapon shop or something like
There's a
that.
few things like I think rank mode will be instantly unlocked, stuff like that.
Yeah,
So that'll be helpful for people who just want to get straight into it and not have to go through Turf War.
for sure.
And then I was playing some Salmon Run as well because I usually just base it on what weapons are available because I hate a lot of the weapons. So I don't.
Yeah.
But there was a map I'd never played before, so I don't know when that got added, but it was like Arc of Polaris. It was very vertical.
Oh,
So
cool. I've never heard of that one. Yeah.
that was pretty fun because it's like tower, and there's lots of the rails to go up.
Oh, that's neat. Yeah, no,
Um,
I only played Splatoon 2 at launch, so any of this new content that was added, and they added a fair bit, I think. Like I'm not
Yeah.
familiar with any of that, so
But I'm like, oh, why are these people I'm playing with so stupid? And it's like, because I'm literally in the lowest levels of.
yes, of course, yeah. You got
Yeah.
people trying out Splatoon 2 maybe for the first time just before the new game comes out too. I don't know, something like that maybe.
Yeah. Or some people were talking about like, oh, I turned on my Wii the other day and like a month ago, and people were still playing the first one, and some people
Oh,
looked like
cool.
they were
Okay.
new players. So
Yeah.
yeah.
There can't be too many of those out in the wild. We use, but also people playing Splatoon on Wii U as well. But
Mm.
Splatoon 2, I could see the game's been on sale a little bit recently in the last couple months. I guess, as they after they announced the third one or getting close to that release, like it's kind of their last chance to maybe sell the second one. So I've seen some discounts on it recently.
But yeah, I need to play the DLC. I'm glad I never did beat it, but when
Yeah.
I've lost my save data because I would be so mad.
That would suck, yeah.
I just remember getting stuck on a very early level where like because there's a lot of sort of gimmicks in that DLC,
Sure. Okay.
and like what's one where you're in the bowl the whole time, and I couldn't just couldn't get past the things that kept pushing me off. So
Hmm.
I'll see how I go. I'll wait till after Splatfest, but I want to play that so I can be ready for the Splatoon 3 story mode.
Yeah, man, I really want to play the Splatfest, but I feel like I've got a wedding that day and we're dropping my kids
wow.
off at the grandparents' house. So I'm not sure if weddings are such an all-day affair that I don't think I'm going to I'd love to carve out like 30 minutes right when it starts just to play a couple of matches just to see. But I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm looking forward to trying it, but I might have to wait until the actual game comes out. So
work scheduled me for Sunday after I made a joke about calling in sick that day, so I've just swapped the shift over with someone else without telling them.
Oh, nice, yeah. For a very legitimate reason, you're playing. You gotta get into Splatoon 3 a little bit here.
Yeah. Well, it's open for 12 hours and working 4 hours plus the time before and after to get to work. It's like that's I'm not going to play 12 whole hours, but losing over a quarter of the time available.
Have you decided what team you're going to join for the Splatfest?
Team Paper, because
Okay, cool.
Fry
do the same.
Is very cute, and I also think it's going to be one of the less popular teams, so it needs some players.
Sounds good. Yeah, I gotta say, I do love the announcement of who wins the Splatfest. I think it's just one of those fun things to see. Even if you don't participate, it's just fun to see like what teams did people pick, like how close was it. I think Nintendo was posting that on Twitter at some point, who was winning the Splatfest. I do think that's a fun little thing that they do, and it's a good way to get people into the game. Is hey, we're all in these teams, we're competing against one another. Pokemon Go did the same kind of thing with their 3 teams. When they first launched that game, is still.
So the access to the demo sort of opened today.
Yes, right.
You can't actually play anything, but you get like the tutorial, you can customize, you get to pick between different weapons and some clothes so that you're ready to go straight in.
And you had to download like a code to get that, right? Or Nintendo emailed you a code and you had to put the code in, redeem the code or something? Or was that something else?
For me, I just went in the eShop and there was a separate thing and you like pressed like pre-order.
Okay.
And then
gotcha.
it downloaded and then the other day it popped up on the homepage.
Okay.
I think the code is just for Switch Online voucher so that people who don't have a Switch Online can play it.
Oh, you're right. It's a 7-day. Yes, that is correct. It's a 7-day Nintendo Switch Online code, so you can try out the Splatfest if you.
And that's one thing I missed out on my save data. There's like purchase bonuses. So like if you have Switch Online, you get like an email with some codes for like a shoes and a shirt, and it's like that's one. It didn't.
It's also double gold coins, at least in the Canadian eShop. I don't know if it's the same for you guys.
Not sure.
Yeah. So I mean that's kind of pushing me because it's almost like it's like getting 10% back basically. So that's pushing me to go digital with this one. I think I just might do that because I think my son's going to want to play as well, and I'll play. So if we have it on both switches digitally, we can play, and then I can go on airplane mode or whatever and play something else on my Switch. So I might do that. I might just go digital and save myself the headache of worrying about putting in the card in whenever he wants to play. Should we get into the main topic?
The topic, yeah.
We realize our mini introduction has turned into 25 minutes. So
well, moving from like one game that takes place in the distant future.
yes, good, very good.
Yeah.
But Gundam Battle Alliance is all over the place, distant future, past, everywhere. So yes, good.
Yeah. So Live Alive. We did a preview, to talk about when we're still on the preview embargo, and we haven't talked about it since we can actually mention everything in the whole game.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
As much as we wanted to, now we actually can spill the beans here.
So I think we're going to discuss the mechanics a little bit first, because we went into it a little bit. Since the combat is pretty much the same, it's just how much different chapters use it or not. And that was the seemingly active time, but it's kind of not really battle system on the grid, where it's like it's you have to move or make or do a move before the other people's bars fill up. So because when I first went into it, I thought it was active, and I'm like making everything worse for myself because I'm like going up and down on the grid and getting a shot at.
You can't just move around freely and like explore, like check out different ranges and stuff like that. You have to pick
every time you move, that counts as like an action.
That's right. Yeah, you got to be very decisive about what you want to do. You almost have to kind of plan out your strategy before you take any actions, right? You have to think about what you want to do, or what is the range of your moves. Even
sometimes you can really just wail on a guy if he positions them right, because depending on their move range, you might like kick them, and then they have to take time to move a spot, and then you kick them again, because by the time they've got back to you, you can do your turn again.
I mean, that's a huge part of the present day chapter, where you're just fighting. There's all combat in that, right? There's no exploration. There's no real story. It's almost like a Street Fighter type of combat, except that your character can absorb the moves of your opponent. So you need to know what their moves are to get out of range of them. But also, when you want to absorb a particular move, you would move into a spot, hope they hit you with that move, like maybe a hurricane kick or something, and then hopefully you learn it afterwards, and then you can turn it on them. But the present day chapter really emphasizes understanding the battle system to be successful, because you don't really level up very much. You just kind of acquire different moves, and then hopefully if you acquire a move in every battle, you can use it in the next one, and generally the enemy in the next one will be maybe have a weakness to that move. So the present day one is kind of interesting in the way that it's just laser focused on the combat. You do have to understand the combat to be successful there.
But I think, so because there is one chapter that kind of doesn't really have much combat, but
yes,
for the most part, the combat's the same. Other mechanics are sometimes chapter based, like some of them have crafting, some of them have like trap setups. So I think that's more. Well, do we need to reintroduce the game, because we just went straight into it? And we already did
I don't think so. People have had a chance to play it. I mean, if you're sticking around for the spoiler cast, presumably, which is what we're doing here, right? Presumably, you've played the game. Maybe we'll just reiterate. This part is we're gonna say anything and everything about the game. So if you don't want to hear about the endings or about how different things play out or who lives and who dies, that kind of stuff, good time to switch off and maybe wait for next week's episode. But I think we can feel free to just dive in here and
it was like, I don't know if should I mention that it's a game from 1994, and then it was like first year release. What why are we talking about different time periods?
I think the elevator pitch time has passed. We did that kind of preview episode, so I think we can just get into the nitty gritty here.
So I think I'm going to do it roughly in order of time period, with the exception
Yes.
of like one of the last chapters,
Yes, that's
because
right.
that doesn't unlock until you've beaten all the other ones. So,
Mhm.
what did you think of the prehistory chapter? Because that is one with no written dialogue. We have just
Yeah,
notes
yeah.
and grants, which they didn't even like get English voice actors for. They just kept the Japanese ones.
Right. I think it's unique because of the fact it doesn't have any dialogue. So it tells a story through actions that you see on the screen. There are some kind of symbols used or pictures used, but a lot of it is just kind of the action of the chapter. That's the one that has a kind of a limited crafting system, which is kind of
Mm.
interesting. It's good to experiment
Yeah,
with that to see what kind of items you get.
at the start where there's that little mini game to get a bunch of items, I sort of did that several times, which is kind of good
Yes,
because you eventually get closed off from that area.
that's right.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of a really good way to get as much of the materials as you can to try and make all the different items, because I think it's one of the harder chapters because most of the other chapters don't have random encounters, and this is one of the
Hmm.
few that does.
Yeah, that's right.
Um, and it's a bit fair. Like, I think it's one of the longer ones too.
Yeah, I think this one's in the 90 minute to 2 hour range, right? It's I found the final battle of this one quite tough as well.
Mm,
These the a lot of the moves that you have, maybe if you grind more, you do more of the random encounters. I didn't do too much grinding in any of the
yeah.
chapters, really. Like I kind of just mainlined
I
and tried to
did a
get to the end as
little bit
fast.
in this one because you have the female character, and she keeps dying. So
Right?
I'd
Yeah.
be I'd be saving after every battle
Yeah.
because I was
Sure.
just like, I
Sure.
don't want to do any of this again.
No, totally.
So I did a little bit to try and get her to be able to take more than one hit, basically.
Okay, okay, gotcha. So you did grind a little bit.
A
There's
little
that
bit.
kind of field area after you get kicked out of the camp
Mm.
where there is a good opportunity to do grinding there. And the fact that referring to the healing episode you guys recorded last week, there's no need to heal in this game unless it's mid battle because your characters get restored to full health after every battle, right?
Yes,
So which
yeah.
is kind of nice. Yeah.
Yeah, so you just focus on the battle. You don't have
Mhm.
to. I can't imagine how much harder that chapter would be if you had to heal
Oh,
everything.
just brutal. Yeah. I mean, the game's designed around the fact that you
Yeah.
don't have a lot of healing items, right? Like there are
Mm.
some chapters where you get more than others, or you can maybe, yeah, just
I
explore more
definitely
and find them. But
used most of the hunks of meat in this chapter.
yeah,
I
same,
was like,
same.
I'm like, I don't want to do this fight again, or I hadn't saved for a few fights. Uh, and yeah, I made sure to like save before I went into new areas because I was like, oh, this might be
Same here.
my last check. Because before you left the field, I'd be like, oh, I might not be able to come back and
Hmm.
grind or not.
Like, obviously, this chapter is going for a sense of humor as well. Like,
Yes, it was very.
it is very kind of potty humor. Like,
I think
both
a lot of
the main
people didn't
character and
like
the
it.
both of the main characters you have, like your character and then the monkey
Fart
character,
attacks.
they have fart attacks, right? That hit basically everyone on the screen, and then even the cutscenes, like there are other kind of jokes like that of that kind of nature, like kind of body or lowbrow type humor, and that's fine. Like it just didn't really land for me as much. I'm just not super into that. I can get why people would be really entertained by this chapter, but
I liked the fire one though when he blew
yeah,
himself
that
up.
was good. That was a good one. Yeah, you almost kind of saw that coming with okay, these are their attacks. Like eventually they're going to set something on fire with this, or they're going to explode something. But yeah,
And then when I got to the end, I wasn't like, I guess I didn't pay attention to the start. I thought the whole thing with the girl was that like she's the only girl, and that's why this hair flipping
yeah,
guy's
yeah.
kidnapping her. I didn't realize it was a whole King Kong type
Right.
thing.
It looked like they were trying to sacrifice her or something like that,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
So yeah, I could see you could kind of see it both ways until the end, or yeah, maybe if you just
And then you
you're
get
paying
back to it, and
strict
you're like,
attention to the
oh
story.
right, that bit right there.
Forgot about that. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think it's easier to forget about that stuff when there's a story without
And I mean,
words.
really, why would I think that they're going to sacrifice the only woman that exists? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't seem a good way to continue their species, right?
Maybe they
Not very
don't know.
productive. Oh. Yeah, I thought prehistory was fine. Like I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It was just kind of middling for me. It lasted maybe a little bit longer. I played it. I didn't play them in chronological order. I was kind of flipping all
Yeah,
over the place. So
I had we had the preview embargo, so we had to play only a few chapters that like
Yeah, we had
Earth,
Imperial China, Edo
Wild
Japan,
West,
Wild West,
and a
and Distant
smidge of
Future.
Distant Future. Yeah.
Yeah, part of Distant
So,
Future.
but otherwise, my plan was to play it in the chronological order.
I think I did chronological order after though
After,
outside of
yeah.
those 4 preview ones. I would go back to present to prehistory after that, but if you play the other ones first, like Wild West is quite short, so if you'd played that just before prehistory, it would be an odd contrast in terms of how lengthy those chapters are. They're quite different.
Well, that's when we were trying to write what's the ideal way to play it. And the game has, once you beat a chapter, it's sort of got like these badges. So there seems to be a recommended order a little bit.
Sure.
Although my only thing about that is whether prehistory is a good first one because it's more like a typical RPG with a bit of the grinding and the random
It is,
encounters.
yeah, definitely, yeah.
Whereas that one's not really quite in chronological order, but I think it's decent because it's you want like a balance between the short chapters and the long chapters mainly, or the ones that are story heavy and not so you know. But yeah, I like the prehistory one. I did not find the super boss in that that one.
Yeah, if you run through it, you may have a hard time at the end, but if you do maybe a little bit of grinding, it's going to pay off, I guess. Yeah, because it's as simple as opening up a single move for a character that can be much stronger, right? Like even just gaining one extra level could be the difference between an easy time and a hard time, right?
Yeah, and I did like the humor of that one, and I was interested to like how they presented the story with like just characters doing emotes, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess for someone who's an English professor, like I need a little bit more dialogue and writing in my RPGs. So I'm telling it through stories, and grunts just wasn't doing it for me. But that's just me.
I liked that the guy had a lizard as a codpiece.
Yes, that's right. Didn't he use it for some of his moves too? Right,
Yeah,
for the attacks. Yeah.
off, yeah. I think because I never played the original like Van Translator or anything. There have been some changes, like aside from like quality of life, like the items now being sparkly, so you actually know where they are,
right? Which
like
is nice,
having a map and stuff like that. But apparently, there are like some minor changes. For example, I was watching someone's old review, and there's like the gorillas,
yes, I remember that scene. Yeah.
Apparently, in the original, they shaped their chests.
Okay. Yeah. Nice.
And I was like, that's definitely not in this one.
They cut that out.
Yeah. So there's a few minor things like that.
They do still abduct your monkey friend, right? And
yes,
take him off somewhere. So that wasn't too I don't know, mature themed for it to cut out, but the chest taking, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Imperial China chapter is, I think it's kind of we've got a big gap. We go from prehistory to then. I mean, Imperial China is a pretty big period of time. You know, I can't really say when this is. It's probably one of the ones that's like over 1,000 years worth of it could be in this time period.
Definitely, yeah.
So this one is interesting. I think some people sort of put it in the recommended because it's kind of easy because your main character is the max level.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And people, but that might give you a wrong impression that it's too easy. But it's like the point is you're the Shifu master, and you are looking for your apprentices, and you find 3 potential recruits. Did you have which one did you end up with?
I went with the girl. What was her name? Faye? No. Oh gosh, I can't remember what her name is. But there were 3 recruits. I went with the girl. I thought she was pretty strong. I liked this chapter too. Actually, it's a good length. It doesn't overstay its welcome. I think the music is really good in this one too.
Yes,
this was one of the demo chapters, so a lot of people would have played this one before playing the main game, maybe even finishing it and then carrying it or finishing part of it and carrying that over. But yeah, I liked a lot about this chapter. I liked kind of going to the different villages and meeting the people there. There's a couple of side quests involved with that too. You can kind of help them out, give them the items.
Yeah. And then I think I like to talk to the villagers because there was a bit where I talked to a girl and she screamed and she was like, sorry, Shifu, I thought you were a creepy old man. And I'm like, oh, Thanks.
And then there's the one where they invite Shifu into the house, and he's like, "Oh, I really like your peach," or something like that. Like
Oh my
it
god,
was
I never
funny. Like it
seen that
was,
one.
yeah, it's good. It's a good length, and I think it gives you a good idea of kind of what the game is. I think it's a good keeping this one in the demo was very smart because it's going to help to sell this game. I think. Did you
Yeah.
choose the same main character for your run as well?
No.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
who
interesting
did you
because
go
this
with?
one technically it does have a little random encounters because the tiger's in the forest, but this is one
Yes,
where pretty much all the fights are like set.
yeah.
Um,
A lot of them at
and
the end too. There's a lot of combat at the. It's very
yes, because
weighted
it's like
heavily at the
you're
end.
storming the fortress, so it's
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
um, which again, when you're playing with the main character of the chapter, it's kind of just a bit boring because it's just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
okay, but because of the preview embargo, I knew that only one of the characters would like succeed.
Yes, right.
Presumably that they would die, which is what happened. But because it didn't say, it just said like student, it didn't say who. So I because before the storming the fortress, like because you're taking vengeance basically, you get into multiple fights with your students, and it's like you can pick who to fight. And because I didn't know how it worked, I just tried to balance it.
Okay. Yeah, I think I did something similar just to see kind of how they would fight or something like that. Just to kind of compare them. But then I ended up just like, okay, I'm just going to fight the same person over and over again because I like this person and maybe I wanted them to succeed. I wanted them to get stronger. I guess like that was my reasoning in my head.
Because it's actually like in each little training session, there's like 3 fights. So it's like, or 4. So I don't know because they move location 3 times.
Yes.
But I fought them each at least once because I thought, I better balance them because I don't know who it's going to be. Anyway, it's based on who has the better stats or whatever. So if you try to balance it, you end up with Hong Haka, who's the big heavy guy.
That's right. Yep.
But I like he's got a lot of food named moves and stuff.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
so I felt I think he was a good one to have. Later on in the last chapter, he's kind of a pain to recruit, but
I've read about that. Yeah,
yes.
that didn't sound as fun.
But I was fine to end up with him. The only problem was that I cheated myself out of the only female character in the game.
Right. Yeah, isn't that
I
funny?
was just balancing it because I didn't know how it worked.
And you don't necessarily know how it works right away, right? Like that. Oh, this is the only.
Didn't have like a sheet from Nintendo telling you what not to talk
Exactly.
about.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, you might just try to balance them and then end up with someone you don't want. But I think he's a good one to play with, and then doing the team ups and stuff. Especially like you've got that because you're at the meeting table, and then it's just like a lineup of baddies to fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I've just had to look it up because it was killing me. Lei was the character that I went with, and I liked having her in the final chapter, especially because she's very fast. So I knew I was going to get the first turn with her because her speed stat is quite high, or at least her speed growth progression is quite high. So it was nice to have her. I don't know of anyone who used the third character, Yun. I don't know if he's a little bit weaker or not.
I think he's technically like got the most potential, but because he starts out the lowest level, it's like
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
I know someone because I was working with someone else on making guides for it, and they said when you play as the girl in the final chapter, if you go to recruit Pogo, the caveman, he won't actually fight you because you're a girl.
Yes, that's right. That's and that happened to me. So that was kind of nice to avoid a battle there, and fun, I guess, thematically as well. That like, he's very driven by his animal instincts. That because there's a woman here, he's not going to fight her. He's just going to join her, be with her, I guess. So yeah, that was funny too. The game does little things like that, little touches where like depending on how you're doing, what your choices are, like little different things can change, which is cool.
So I say, Imperial China is a pretty good one, possibly to start with. It's just that, just don't think the game's too easy. I think it's relatively easy for the most part, but just because the main character you play as the teacher, he's max level already. So.
That's right. I'd say Imperial China is in my top half of the chapters for sure. I don't think it's number one necessarily, but I did enjoy it. I think the pacing and everything about it's very good.
And Ida Japan is probably the or one of the biggest chapters.
Hmm.
It really depends, I guess, how good you are at finding where to go and what you do.
Yeah, it is as maybe big as you want it to be almost, right? Like it's not super long, but there's so many things you can do there, like hidden
Yeah,
battles, hidden treasure chests, right?
there was a few. Did you try to stealth it or?
I did a mixture of both. So I certainly didn't fight everybody, but I did want it to fight a little bit to get stronger, especially when I found the beginning tougher. I remember saying this during when
Because
we
if you
were
stealth it,
previewing it.
there are some unavoidable fights.
Yes, that's right.
You can, however, kill ghosts, and that doesn't count towards your like souls lost because I guess
Yeah.
they're already lost. So
So you could do
that
all
is
your
a
grinding
hint.
there guilt
Yeah.
free, I suppose. But
But I tried to kill everyone, but I screwed up by getting the passwords right sometimes. So then
yes.
you can't fight the guards after that.
Isn't that fun? Even, yeah, isn't that funny? Like that, just again another little touch that can derail
And
your assassination run. I guess.
I attacked a sleeping lady, which I regretted immediately because she just chases you into every room.
Right.
And you fight her, and then she's still in another room. Apparently, eventually, they're all just like I guess illusions, and like if you fight her enough times in different rooms, you eventually find the actual one, and she'll go away.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I didn't know that. I was just it was just made the like last bit of the game a massive pain.
Right.
Cause just like
Did you leave? I mean, like, yeah, we played it for the preview, but you didn't. You didn't do, or did you do did you restart afterwards? Or I'm trying to
no,
think, like, if you went back to Edo Japan and played it again, or played it through
no,
again
I
a
just
second time or
finished
something.
it because the preview was just like just don't talk about the final boss fight.
Yes,
So
right. Yeah,
I
yeah.
just
It was
played the
pretty
whole
much
thing.
everything but that. Cool.
Um, Yeah, I think I took a while to find the second party member. I just ended up in jail because a lot of like rooftop areas and like they have traps, and I fell down, so you end up in the jail.
A lot of the level looks the same or similar, so it's easy to get lost, right? And I suppose that may be part of the theming as well. That like this castle, like you're infiltrating it, it shouldn't be a cakewalk to go from the beginning to the end. It's almost meant to be deceptive, and so like I found it. The map is purposefully obfuscated or not all that clear. So I think getting lost is kind of just part of this chapter. You're going to see the same. You might see the same hallways, same areas multiple times before you achieve the goals of the chapter and get to the
Um,
end.
and there were some areas I definitely didn't try to go to. Like there's the ones where you've got to avoid like these little robots from flipping you over.
Right. Yeah.
I wasn't in the mood to do that. I was like, on another playthrough, I'll try to get like
Yeah.
surely whatever item is behind them can't be that worth.
No. No.
um, I did find one of the secret bosses, which was the giant koi fish.
Yeah, you found it
I
when you did
got
that when we first talked about this game,
I
and
got
I hadn't found that boss, even though I did go in some of the water areas, but I guess I
yeah.
didn't go
He's
far
just
enough.
like because he doesn't have a snorkel, but he's just like a little black spot. I'm like, oh, what's this? And then I
Yeah.
died. And there's also another optional boss fight where you get a cool sword. So yeah, because it's like either there's two ways to get like the like best item, and one is the killing everyone, or
Yeah.
if you don't, I think you get it
I
if you
think
don't kill anyone.
maybe you read this, or maybe I'm misremembering this, but the weapons you get in the final chapter are better than anything you find in the individual chapters. Is that right? Or maybe not the case for
I'm
all of
not
them, but
sure. I think
yeah,
there's some super like because there's super bosses in the chapters,
yeah, yeah.
so potentially the ones you get from certain things like that would
They
be
might be better, and you'd want to
good
carry those
as.
over.
But yeah, otherwise, if you didn't get those, then you'd want to pick up
You'd
stuff in
want
the
to do
final
the
chapter.
the, the 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 individual dungeons at the end to get good items. Yeah.
Yeah, but this one, it's huge. There's different ways to get into different buildings, like with the stealth and the passwords.
Hmm.
There was another secret party member I did not know about or find. So yeah, the next time I get around to playing this game, I'm gonna do everything.
It does feel like it lends itself to replays, right? You're supposed to go back to
Yeah,
the chapters or back to the entire game and just do things differently and have a different experience with it. And I think that it might be
and
that just a game that and it'll be a cult classic again for that reason that people can keep replaying and keep
with the
talking about it.
multiple saves and stuff, you can just redo the chapter and save.
Hmm.
You don't
Yes,
have
that's right.
to
That's right.
start all over again.
Yeah, yeah. You could just do individual pieces over again.
But yeah, I'd say it's probably not a good choice for a first chapter.
No, I agree. It's not.
And
It's
I
not.
think in the game order they put it as like one of the last ones before the final chapters, which I think
Yeah.
is because it's one of the longest ones. But
Hmm.
it's a good one.
Yeah, I think it's one of the more interesting ones for sure. Just again for the sheer variety of it, I just found it a little bit frustrating because I was getting lost and I had some difficulty initially with the combat, or I guess whoever I was running into was killing me, and so I had to restart it a couple of times. But I do think it's an interesting one for sure. Just probably leave it till closer to the end if you can.
Meanwhile, the Wild West is a much shorter chapter, depending on how you go.
Yes, yes,
So
definitely.
that's the one I think I started with. So I got so I was getting a bit confused with the combat mechanics and dying a
Yeah.
bunch. Yeah, the
Yeah,
main
Wild Wild West reminded me of instantly of Home Alone. Like I thought, like, oh, you're setting up
yeah.
traps for people that are going to run into them later, and I thought, okay, we're literally going house to house to find the traps and have people set them up. It just felt so much like Home Alone 1 or 2, where Kevin McAllister is preventing the bandits from getting into his house. You're preventing the bandits from getting into the town, pretty much, right? So that was my analogy, kind of
Oh,
or
yeah,
for
so
first impression analogy.
the main thing is like you have a couple of fights, but then it's you're helping the town against these bandits that have been annoying them, or like harassing, annoying is probably the
Yeah,
best way.
not strong enough.
What
They're
what
not
what
annoying.
what what wild bandits do
Yes,
to
exactly.
poor frontier towns.
They're just
So
annoying. That's
you've
all.
got a time period of like before sunset to not only find all the traps, but to set them up with villagers who take the time to set them up. Some of
Yeah,
them take a very long time. So because the more traps you successfully set up, the less people there are in the boss fight. So if you do like perfectly, you can pretty much only have the main boss and not a bunch of. I mean, if you want to make it harder for yourself, if you want to make it really hard, you can just not set up any traps. But
that I mean, again, there speaks to the way you could play this game differently. You could just sit and wait for sunrise to come, and then have a really hard boss fight. I don't know how tough that fight would be. I'm sure some people have done it,
well,
but
you basically don't have any room to move
that's right.
because,
Yeah, exactly.
like, I mean, when I did the fight, I still had like 2 horse guys, and they take up 4 squares, so it was
I
like
too as well. Yeah,
so I had to make sure to keep my 2 party members near each other so they could heal each other because when you get knocked out in a fight, they've got the halo, but if you heal them before they take any more damage, they're back in the game.
that's right.
But if the AI like the enemies kick them, then they're out of the battle.
Hmm. And the main boss in that fight, ODO, he's got a gun that's very powerful and could easily knock you out
Yeah,
even if
they
you're at full health.
so I said the enemies know that like you're not knocked out yet, and they will pick on you. Like so,
Yes, that's right.
yeah. So yeah, I really liked that chapter. I was just like, because I mean, I really liked the game, but it was like sort of the one blowing my mind, like different stuff that you can do, and some stuff's not important. Like for example, sending I think Annie off to do a trap, and then I could go in her room and take her diary,
That's right. Yeah.
which apparently in the original was panties, so they've changed that to diary. um, it's like I understand why, but I also feel like I mean either because if you show it to her, she hits you, and I'm like, makes slightly more sense that she hits you for stealing her knickers in her diary.
That depends what's in the diary. If the
Yeah,
diary is a little bit saucy, then
yeah,
that could see that being slap worthy as well.
yeah,
I like this chapter too. It was actually the very first one that I played of the game, and it gave me kind of a
yeah,
good, strong, positive impression to start off reviewing the game. I liked it. I think it's short and there's not a lot of combat, but I think what's here is fun. I think the going from house to house, setting up the traps, like it is interesting to kind of see that payoff of the more work you do in that segment of the chapter, the easier the final boss fight is. Like that, it's nice when you
yeah.
see in a short time span the effort you put into something pay off kind of immediately like that. So
But
I
yeah, I
did like
think
it.
as long as you find all the items before the halfway mark, you'll have enough
Hmm.
time to set up the traps. But yeah, some of the traps are also like specific to characters. Like
That's
Billy,
right. Yeah.
Billy gives you
Give
a
them the
thing,
right person.
you got to just give it back to him. Like
Yeah.
because otherwise
I definitely
he might
put
come
Wild
back in
West
time to
and
set up his trap.
I would definitely put this one in my top half as well. I liked it. I think it's a good one to start. I think another good one to start with as well, just because it's not you get a little bit of combat early, but I don't think it's too overwhelming. Like it kind of gives you a good sense of how the game's going to work. And then
Unless you don't,
have
then it's
what?
very overwhelming.
Yeah. But yeah, no,
Yeah, that's a
I
good one
well,
to
it was a
start
fun one.
with. Meanwhile, I mean, you talked about present day a bit when we
Yeah,
talked
we
about
don't need to talk about it too much,
but
but
that's the shortest chapter. I
by
would
far,
not recommend it as the first
no,
choice.
absolutely not.
It's
You
basically it gives you like a whole fighting game versus screen. So you do fights, and you're just stuck as your level. But you when they hit you with a move, you learn their move. I just did them from left to right. I was perfectly fine with that. I did have to go back and refight someone because they just wouldn't do a particular move. So I had to try and
okay.
figure out where on the stage to stand to get them to do that move. But yeah, it was really fun, and it's like a good refreshing difference between some of the long chapters and that where it's just like straight up. This is all about strategy. It's just
Yeah,
I want to be the best.
it's a good palate cleanser if you've just finished a long chapter to go to present day after that. It would be like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, this is kind of short and brisk, and it is just the combat. I think the combat is good in this game, so I
Yes.
think that's what makes this a good one, even if it doesn't have a lot of story to it.
Something that so there's like this thing in apparently it's in every chapter, but I've only seen it. I noticed in a few where there's always like a father and son, and the father dies.
Hmm.
And it actually happened the second time I fought the like the Mexican guy. Some guy threw a can at him and booed him, so the guy he
Right.
jumps off the stage and just beats him to death. And
Okay,
the
that's
kid's like,
hilarious.
"Dad!" Yeah. So you're like, I didn't see that the first time I fought
I
him.
definitely did not see
Yeah.
that.
And in some of the chapters, like you see the characters, like in the Wild West, it's part of the cutscene before the bandits strove in.
Yes.
In Imperial China, it's the guy avenging his dad. But yeah, there's other times where it's like I didn't see them too, but
Mhm.
apparently they're in every chapter.
That's good.
Near Future is the Akira one.
Yes, that's right.
Yes, because it's the Psycho. So that one's one that's, I guess, medium size.
Yeah,
It's not
medium
as
to
long
long.
as.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say like Edo is the longest, and then it's like Prehistory and Near Future probably.
Hmm.
Because that one's got a couple of random encounters because you've got like this little overworld map and you're walking to and from locations. There's that,
Hmm.
but again, otherwise it's mostly like set encounters. I liked that one. I think apparently in the original he was quite weak, the main character. So I think they fixed him up a bit because I didn't struggle with him too much,
No.
but I did like this chapter.
Yeah, I thought the reading people's thoughts was interesting. Although that sound effect gets a little
Yeah,
turning
it's a
on the
bit.
mental power sound
It
effect gets a
takes
little grating after a while, right?
it just takes
Um,
too long.
yeah, it takes you long. It's just to hear that same jingle or tune every time is a little bit much. But
It
it's just
was
fun to read people's thoughts.
also one of the other chapters that has a crafting mechanic when you talk to the
Yes,
mad
that's right. That's right.
scientist.
Yeah.
So I liked it. It's just sort of set. Yeah, because it's near future, so it's just I don't know when it's actually set, but just the differences is that there's psychic powers and some sci-fi elements, but it's set in a city.
I like the visuals of this chapter a lot. I
Yeah,
thought the way the city is kind of displayed in the HD 2D looks nice. There's a lot of color in this one as well, a lot of greens and blues. Like you start in that park, he's lying on the bench, and everything is like a bright kind of light green color, and you're kind of in this natural setting. It's a good opening, I think, as well. I found there's a little bit too much back and forth between like the house and the lab, which is a little frustrating for me. But the ending with the giant boss, the giant robot fight is really cool.
So apparently, all the different scenarios have different writers, like they were done by different mangaka. So you can sort of see that like they like you get a bit where they come together, but yeah, all the stories are by a different person.
Mm-hmm.
And they redid the so with the song, because you've got like a whole, it's basically like an anime opening.
Yes, totally. Yeah,
So
that's good.
they re-record, like, did it because there's no vocals in the original, so they
Right. Yes.
re-recorded a whole vocal thing. So when the giant your mech finally activates, it's just got this whole massive like anime opening, and it's really cool. It's actually the singer of it is actually someone who's done quite a few of the like a Dragon Ball opening and other ones
Okay.
too.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah, so
That's
like a
cool.
big famous
They hired
person.
a veteran to pen that one
Yes.
to sing it. Yeah.
Um,
Good.
and like all the music's done by the same original people, but they just get to use modern instruments, and they're not
That's right.
limited to the. Actually, that's my review got fairly edited, and that they changed. I called it like the primitive limitations, and they just changed it to like the Super Famicom limitation.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I can't call it primitive. But
I mean, it's funny by comparison. Yes, totally. Although what's funny with this game is you compare it to the original version, you see how much of that art has carried over to this game. Like
yeah,
they didn't try to change kind of like the DNA of the game. So
no,
much of it is like
um,
familiar,
it's
or
just like adding
recognizable, I
adding
guess.
adding depth and visual effects.
Yeah,
Um, Character models look a bit better, I think.
sure. No,
I was
no,
like,
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah, I went to look at the game to see how it was. I'm like, oof, really, like I'm sure it's an okay looking game, but after looking at this one, it's like, oh,
I mean, I'd say even by like Super Nintendo standards, it looks a little bit rough. If you compare
yeah,
that to FX and Chrono Trigger, which I think both came just slightly after. I mean, what's his name? Tokita, who worked on this game, like he went to Chrono Trigger right after this game, right? So you can see that they're building off of it. But this one, yeah, it's closer to like the older or the maybe earlier Super Famicom, Super Nintendo RPGs as opposed to
yeah.
the ones that come later in the life cycle.
And like my husband was asking, like, 'cause I was up to a boss fight in like the other chapter, and he was like, "Oh, I wonder what that looked like in the original." We looked it up, and it was like pretty much the same. It's just that you get like
Yes,
all that depth and the
yeah.
background and like all these massive visual effects.
It totally brings the game to life, right? Like, it makes this one a very much a definitive
I
version of
think
the game, I'd say.
the near future rupture. Sorry, the near future probably had one of the most disturbing stories. Like
Yes, yeah.
they kept it pretty lighthearted, but it was literally like kids were getting kidnapped and people's souls were getting liquefied to power machines,
Yeah, and
and then
it's
be
funny. It doesn't.
sacrificed.
It's
They
all
don't.
kind of wrapped up in like
Yeah,
a nice package, but if you
really.
pay attention to what's happening, it's quite dark. Yeah.
It's really like they sort of do a bit when he like kills his dad, but like other than that, yeah, the gravity of the situation isn't really
Hmm.
emphasized so much because
No, not at
it's one
all.
of the
Like, and not from
darkest.
the dialogue or the music either. I
No.
would say like it is kind of subtle, maybe.
Yeah, the playing as the big mech was fun. I think the boss
Hmm.
fight was relatively easy once
It
like
was, yeah, yeah.
once I knew what to do because I had to stop him from like binding me every 3 seconds.
Hmm.
But yeah, I liked that one. I think apparently it's not as much of a favorite for some people.
Yeah,
But
I could see why it would be hit and miss. I do think that parts of it are repetitive until you get to even when you're in the building and you're kind of going through the floors and getting to the end, it's fine. But yeah, again, the wanting to check everybody's mind to see what they're thinking, that just gets old a little bit fast.
yeah, I think I still did it for everyone just in case because like you get passwords and stuff to
I did
unlock
too. I did it
lockers.
for
Yeah.
I think I did it for every single person I found,
Um,
just because I had to know. I didn't want to miss
but I
something funny
still
or
missed out
interesting.
on some things because the kids were asking for food and I had no idea where to get food.
Right?
It
Yes.
was like you're supposed to go back to the park or look
You go to
around
the
the park.
park. Yeah, yeah. And you've got to
Um,
cook it differently.
but yeah, the distant future is also not one I'd recommend as your first chapter.
No.
But it would be a good in between chapter because it's very story heavy. Like basically, the combat is in an optional mini game,
Hmm.
and then there, since it's spoiler classes, and then the final boss fight. But that's it. Like it's otherwise, it's
That's it.
just
Yeah.
walk here, walk there, make some coffee. There you go. So, what did you? Now that we can actually talk about the story at all, because we basically couldn't
Hmm.
in the preview, what did you think?
Gosh, this chapter I'm so conflicted about because I like the way it kind of pays off at the end, but I just
Yeah.
found it very boring through most of it. Like
Mm.
just the walking around the story. Yeah, I mean, it's another one that gets pretty dark, pretty obviously dark, right? You
Yes.
have someone
'Cause
sleeping with a corpse, which we've
yes.
seen in other stories, but whenever that happens, that is
Yeah.
very, yeah, off-putting. The
And
fact
she
that it's not
smacks.
just that you find out that the kind of captain of the ship is just an AI that's kind of gone rogue, right? Or the
Yeah.
captain's
It's
dead,
really
right?
funny. Like because the review embargo didn't have too many, like the actual review. It was like basically just don't spoil the last chapters.
Yes,
But also
exactly.
one of the things is to not spoil who the bad guy in this is. And it's like,
Yeah,
it's so obvious. Like, aside from the fact that all the bad guys have a similar name, like the OD
hmm
or OD, ignoring that, it's like, there's who else would you think it was going to be? The
that's
military
right.
guy,
That's right. Yeah,
like the one that was set up to.
yeah. The
It's
obvious the obvious red herring as a bad
um,
guy is not not going to be him.
I know some people who are like really impressed by this chapter,
Hmm
and I'm just like, no, because they're like, oh, but it's a really good story. It's like it's from 1994. Games Workshop when they're good. I'm like, the two movies it's ripping off came out in like the 70s.
Yes, exactly.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, this is so obviously, a reflection
Alien
or a
and Hal.
yeah,
Yeah,
Alien and 2001: A Space Odyssey, and
yeah,
I mean, it's a decent kind of retelling of those as
yeah,
well. Like, I think it's genuinely creepy when the behemoth is roaming around the halls and you don't know where it's going to show up, and
yeah.
then it shows up and you got to run, right? Like,
I think
did
I
you ever
only
get caught by it? Did you ever get
I
caught
did
or?
because I forgot the elevators weren't working.
Right? Yeah. Okay, that's funny.
And then the only other time I died was because I walked through the oil spill, and
Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah.
but otherwise, yeah, it was pretty easy to avoid with the ladders.
Yeah,
So,
there's a little bit of backtracking as well, or kind of some
yes, it's a lot of that.
frustrating navigation in the very
Um,
end of this chapter before you get to the boss
yeah,
fight. But
story wise, I'd say the more interesting part was the interpersonal conflict and like there was a
mhm,
character that had been in a relationship with someone else previously. That
yeah,
kind of thing often isn't explored, especially in games.
yeah,
But like the overall main narrative, I'm not surprised by. So
I wish this one was just edited down a little bit further. I think it just takes too long to get
mm,
to what I think are some of the more interesting
he needs to skate
twists.
faster. Yeah,
Yeah, the robot just needs to teleport from place to place. I don't
yeah,
know, like the walking was just kind of clumsy, and the fact that there's no combat to kind of like add some variety. Yeah,
yeah.
it's just a chapter of waiting for things to happen, and
Mm.
I did love it.
So like yeah, it's very story focused, and then I'm not particularly impressed by the story.
No,
So,
no.
um, I did. I was trying to think. I didn't try. Like, I waited till I got the memory card to play the mini game, but I was like, I didn't actually beat it, so I assume you get a reward for that, hopefully. But I don't want to go back and beat it one day because that's like a full on challenge thing. Because you got to.
Hmm
And
Yeah,
then
I
it's
did not
funny.
get that either.
Yeah, but I did a couple levels of it.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I did one or two just to try it out. But then I'm like, oh,
There's
I don't want
also
to do this whole thing.
one of my things is like most of the voice acting is pretty good, but in this game there's a couple of like the Asian accents that I was kind of like,
Yeah, yeah.
and then this one chick, I think she's like, it's sometimes you like, like are they trying to do an Australian accent? Are they trying to do a New Zealand accent? I
Mm,
can't tell because the person doing the voice acting is neither of those
they
things. So
can't tell either. Yeah.
yeah, it was like I looked up after I beat the chapter and I was like, the voice actor is an Anglo American. So
Okay.
I was just like, I think they were trying to do that, but it wasn't
Hmm.
quite right. Um, so it's a bit more irritating to me
hmm
when it's like, okay, you can hire.
That's
In
fair.
some games
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, you hire British people, you hire people from all these countries, but then whenever you want to do an Australian accent, you just assume that you can get it right.
Yeah.
So
Why not
every
just go the
time,
whole mile and do the
although
right?
I do know it can kind of sound funny when you put an Australian next to an American.
Hmm.
Because there was like one where I was watching a movie and I was trying to figure out if they're Australian or not, and they are. It was just because I was listening to an Australian accent next to an American accent, it made it sound quite
Gotcha.
different.
Okay.
Whereas if like you're just watching one where everyone's Australian, everyone's American, it's not as hard to
Hmm
pick up on. I did one thing is when like criticism is also the AI. He's like, it's all your fault. I was to keep you guys safe, but your fault. And it's like all the evidence of us fighting is the stuff that he started. He's
Right.
like, oh,
Yes, that's true.
it's like
It
no,
didn't
all of
really
it.
come
Like
together.
you didn't. The only thing that happened before your interference was like a breakup at some point.
Yeah.
Like, maybe some of that, but like all the examples of the interpersonal conflict was after he started killing people.
Hmm.
It's like you're like tripping someone over and then being like, see, it's because you guys cried that I started killing you.
I mean, I guess that's what makes him the villain, like just displacing the blame away from itself, I suppose, right?
That's actually going into like the Middle Ages in the final chapter. Like the blame displacement is a big one.
Absolutely, it's very
guys.
very strong there. Yeah.
So yeah, you finally, after you beat everything, you get the Middle Ages. And that was, I think, the only one where I didn't rename the character Paige.
Yes.
Because I was naming everyone Paige.
You'd given up by that point.
Oh, well, I saw, again, because like the review, like embargo stuff, it like sort of told you like what happened, they, sort of.
Yeah, they kind of reveal a little bit what happened.
The main hint is that when you first beat a fight, your XP bar and stuff is red. And everyone else's is blue.
Yes, right.
So that's like your first hint. And that one is also one of the ones like that in the final chapter. It's like one of the 4 chapters with the random encounters. And yeah, so that one I think I like. When we went to find, like, the start of it is you win the tournament, you get your bride, she gets kidnapped, and then you journey out to find the heroes that originally beat this bad guy.
Yeah.
And one of the heroes is like disillusioned with the world, with people. Like he's hermited himself up in the mountain. His friend talking to I liked that part of the story.
Yeah, me too.
I liked having an example of like a hero who's gone and like done everything right, but he's not happy. So then it's kind of interesting how the story ends, and there's like he had these examples, and he couldn't follow them. Basically, were you surprised by the friend's betrayal?
I mean, yes and no. Like, as soon as I see them kind of fighting for the bride or the princess at the beginning, you're like, you set them up as rivals. So then it's like, it's a little odd that they both go to journey and save his wife, or his bride, and not. Like, why are you helping him? Like he just beat you in the tournament,
Yeah, like he's like in the tournament, and then he immediately joins you up to help find her, and I'm like, yeah.
She seemed a little too convenient, like, of course you're going to take this guy. He's a mage. Of course we need a mage. Yeah.
And like some people said, again, people are like trying to cut it slack because it's a story from like 1994, but it was like, yeah, but like the friend betrayal was the most obvious thing. Like some of the other stuff a bit less so, but like the friend betraying you was like, I wasn't surprised. It was weird because he's like semi-silent, like he's only talking the fights, and then when he gets set up with the illusion and kills the king, he doesn't say anything,
right,
at all. He
seems like a serious moment where you're allowed to like gloat about your victory or something like that. I don't know.
He didn't try to defend himself at all.
Yeah,
and it was just like, why? He just. I guess it wouldn't work with it. It's just like that's like it didn't even like try to say anything and get interrupted though. It was just like it's just like. I mean, I guess he's like in shock maybe, but like after a while, sure.
Yeah, it was a little odd that just there's no point where it comes up that you know. This wasn't me. I didn't do this. Like, there's something nefarious happening here. Like, maybe you could say that.
But yeah, so it was. I wasn't as with the whole friend betrayal and that I'm not as shocked by. But I did like having the other two, like the older heroes, and the old guy, but when he like sort of sacrifices power to try and help you escape.
Yeah.
He gives you advice, and you don't take. You evidently don't take it in the end.
I think this is the only chapter, at least initially, where you have 4 characters. I don't think that happens in the other ones, right? So it was kind of cool to have that full party in this one before the final chapter, to just have that dynamic happening, and then feeling maybe a little bit more capable in the battles. I thought the knight, the kind of retired knight character, was a fun one to have in the party. Like he's still very strong, and just fun to kind of bring him in, and then like, oh wow, this guy can take out anybody, right? Like it's cool to have that.
I was a little confused when you finally get up to your friend and you fight him.
Yes.
And then your bride is like telling you off for like taking too long, but then she's also sympathizing with the person that kidnapped her. So I'm like, Were you in love with him the whole time, or did you
Yeah.
fall in love after you gave up on being rescued?
I mean, I suppose that kind of leads into what happens at the end of the game, right? Where you have this main character from the Middle Ages who you realize becomes like this main villain, right?
Yeah, well,
Um,
that's when it happens, basically,
yeah,
because
yeah,
he saves the day. He's been betrayed by his best friend, but then his wife takes her own life, and it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
the only thing I was confused by was it because like because she was like suddenly going off at you, and I'm like, heh, what? And kills herself, and I was like, but did because he was in love with her the whole time, so it's like, was she also? And she was just faking when she was talking to you, like
I
all
mean,
this.
that makes sense, right? That
Okay,
makes sense. But then why? I don't know why would he go on this? Why would the friend or the person who lost the tournament, the wizard? Why would he go on this quest to save her and then recruit all these people to make the mission
and
easier?
fake
Like
his
it doesn't
death.
make sense.
Well, he's
I
the
don't
one that
know.
set up the monster and stuff, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little. There's definitely some holes in that story. I think that
Yeah,
could be plugged. I think the gameplay in the Middle Ages chapter is good. I think that going to the different areas is fun and the random encounters. Like it feels a lot like a typical RPG. Probably most
yeah.
compared to the other chapters for sure.
Um, and it's I don't completely disagree with the situation because like if
Hmm.
I if that happened to me and everyone's calling me the bad guy, I'd probably just be like, okay, I am the bad guy. What are you gonna do about it? Like,
Yeah,
boo. Like,
own up to it.
yeah. Um, I think he kills everybody. Like you don't see it, but when you beat the game on the proper ending, like the
Hmm.
final chapter, he's just walking around the world and there's nobody there. So
Yeah, I think
I was like,
that's the sense is that he's
I
killed everybody.
yeah. It's
Like
like damn.
it's like a chaos ending, right? Where he's kind of ended the world, and
Well,
now
yeah, it's
he's.
like that, but like instead of that, it's like everyone else gets a happy ending. It's just him wandering around, like,
Hmm.
oh, that's it. But yeah, he gets betrayed, like doubly. No, he did everything right, and then he lost everything.
Yeah. Again,
Um,
you can understand why he would turn to villainy after such a
yeah,
tragic ending,
I,
whether
I just
expected
wouldn't
or
have
not.
killed
But
everyone. I would have just been like, what are you gonna do? I'm the big tough bad guy. That you
yeah,
know,
that's
like,
right.
but but then that goes straight into the final chapter
Hmm.
where because just before where you do the final boss fight, you see all these statues and it's all the bad guys from the other chapters because they're
Yeah, the
like
final bosses. Yeah.
the embodiment of darkness or something. So he actually, well, there's like a few things because you can actually play a chapter as him, like the final
Hmm.
chapter, and that's
That's right.
basically like a boss rush where you play as the bosses.
Yeah, it's a neat kind of inversion of
Yeah,
an RPG where instead of or any game that has a boss rush where you're fighting all the bosses consecutively, instead you're fighting as the bosses
yeah,
consecutively, and it's fun. It was a nice kind of change of the normal expectations, I guess.
yeah, and then that's like him going back in time and making sure that they all win.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
But the main final chapter is that he pulls all these heroes into like the world that he's ruined
Mhm.
to teach them a lesson or something. like I,
I'm not sure what the
he
purpose was.
talks,
I don't
yeah.
know. I don't know.
I guess it's just his alternate plan. Instead of like helping the bad guys beat them, he's like,
He'll do it himself, kind of thing, maybe.
yeah,
Right? Yeah, I could
yeah.
see that.
Um, because like when you can see in his own chapter when he's like playing, like doing the boss rush one, or like
Hmm.
at the end fight, it's like he's just doing all this blame shifting, like, oh, you just wanted to be the best fighter and you lost to someone who wouldn't even kill people, or like things like
Hmm.
that. It's just a lot of like that attitude.
Blaming the bosses. You mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like, oh,
Um,
you weren't able to do the
who
job, so I'll do it.
who did you pick as your starting person?
Wild West. So I had
So you didn't have to chase him around.
yeah, it was fortunate. I didn't have to chase down
Yeah,
Sundown. I
because how
started
that
with him.
works is like the person you pick first, you can't kick them out of the party.
That's
Which
right, and
unfortunately,
they're your first
I
character
picked
in your party.
I picked Akira, so I couldn't actually
Yeah.
run away from any fights without
Oh no.
teleporting. Like, and then, well, that's how you get into one of, because there's a lot of secret areas, and you need a
Yes.
particular party
Yes.
member to get. And Akira, one of them, was like I teleported into it, and I'm like, uh, so
I
annoyed.
don't want to
But
be here.
yeah, I didn't have any party members still.
Right. Right. Yeah.
It's just like, but I didn't. that's a chapter. My enjoyment sort of started to go down in the Middle
Yeah,
Ages
yeah,
chapter.
yeah.
I think just because it was like the ones like with the random encounters, and there's so
Hmm.
much in this last chapter
There's a
where
ton, yeah.
it went like I really liked the game, but it's just like it just went down a little bit because it's reaching the end and
I
going
think
through
it's
all
a
these
neat
fights.
premise of like getting all the characters together to fight the final boss. I like that trope in games, or that mechanic of like, let's get the band back together for one last ride. I think that's a cool one, and I always find that fun. But this chapter still drags because of all the different ways. Excuse me, all the different ways to acquire the characters, and then you have to go to each
Yes,
one's final dungeon to get their good weapons, and
yeah, like
it's a lot.
uh,
Can I just say, Paige, right now, the dungeon with the keys is one of the worst dungeons I've ever
I,
played in
d-
my life.
I didn't do
It is.
I didn't do some of the dungeons. So I just went. I
I
was
don't
like,
even remember whose it was. It might have been the Edo of Japan characters
yeah,
final, but oh my gosh, is it brutal? So you have to randomly encounter certain enemies that have keys to open locked doors, and there's about in the neighborhood of 10 to 20 of these locked doors. So you're constantly just walking around to find random encounters with a specific enemy that holds a key to use the key to go forward in the dungeon. It is just horrible and monotonous, and I couldn't believe that I had to do that. I did that one
I
because I wanted that character in my party, but it was just brutal.
yeah, I did recruit everyone just to
Yeah,
see,
me too.
but I didn't do. I only did a couple of the challenges. Like I
Okay.
think probably the easiest one where you fight a boss and then it's just like some random fights in the room before.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
The robot
I
one
I
was easy. It was just a few puzzle
I
rooms.
got annoyed though because I swear I walked. I thought it was this chapter, no, the medieval chapter maybe, where you know where to go, but
Hmm.
I had to go somewhere else first before it would
Yeah,
let me
right.
get to the boss. So I walked up and down that whole cave thing like twice.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the third time was when I could actually do the fight, and I got
Oh
really
gosh.
mad. Um, yes, some enemies I don't like the spiders at all.
Yeah. There were these green knights that you would encounter. I could never beat them. They were so strong. I
um,
don't know if you fought them
and
or
then
took
there
care of
was
them, but
like
they
I
were really
wanted to fight
powerful.
the bear on the mountain, but by the time
Yep.
I actually had a party, then he wouldn't trigger, and I'm like,
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah. It's an odd chapter. I think it's trying to do so much, and all at the end of the game when you've already gone through so many chapters. It's almost
yeah,
like, why is this one so involved? You know,
like
I want to get to the end of the game at this point. You know.
like next time I play it, I'd go and do all the challenges, but I just sort of saved and was like, oh, I'll see if I can. Like didn't even know what like level to be.
Hmm. Hmm.
I went to see if I could do it. I'm
Yeah.
trying to find what level my characters were because they weren't even because there's a certain level where you've unlocked
All the
um
moves, right? All the
all the
abilities.
moves, and I hadn't actually
Yeah.
unlocked all the moves even like not
Right.
all of them. Like they're all sitting at sort of levels 14
Okay.
ish,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I managed to beat it.
Who did you
Um,
use in your final party, or at least who was your first group? Because it does, God, it. Another thing I want to complain about is it does that stupid thing in RPGs where it forces you to use all the characters, and so if you haven't leveled up everybody, or you don't have like all the good equipment on your other characters, you're in trouble. And that's what happened to me. Like the first time I fought the boss, or first or second time, I beat the first phase of the boss, and there's a second phase where you have to bring in the characters that you never use, and I was like, oh God, I hate this. It's just brutal. It really
I'm just
choked me
trying
up.
to. I feel like I'm trying to see. There we go. Okay, my characters were apparently level 16, 15, 14, and
Okay.
14.
Okay.
I had Akira,
Yep.
Honghaka, Sundown
Yep.
Kid, and I think the present day guy.
Okay.
I think,
I had Cube from Distant
yeah.
Future. I had Sundown. I
So you
had
had more of the hero.
Lay, and I had the character from Edo Japan. I can't remember
Yeah.
his name, but
I managed to kill myself the first time because I picked up an item called Burial Shroud and I used
okay.
it. Don't use that.
Good advice. I don't think I ever did use that. That sounds fun.
Dude, yeah, like kills you. So then I lost one of my main guys. Yeah, it only took me like the second try. Because like I pick off the when you fight the final boss, it's like the mouth and eyes. So I had split them on half, attack the eyes, attack the mouth, and make sure to position myself accordingly. Like now I knew that he'd like push you back every so often, so like
Hmm.
make sure at least two characters were near each other so they could perpetually heal each other, so they wouldn't die and then it'd be screwed. They did add, like, so there's a bit after you beat him, and then you get into, like, I think the boss rush, which I screwed up on the cowboy one, so I'd do it again.
Right, right, yeah.
That was the one I screwed up because I forgot about his, like, charge attack. Um, and then you do another fight, and that fight is actually new to this version of the game, where it's just all the characters coming together, and
Yep.
it's very easy. I mean, you'd have to, like, deliberately be doing something wrong to mess it up, but I liked that they added that because it gives you that whole everyone is coming together to defeat.
Yeah, they literally come
madness.
together all at once. Yeah.
Yes, and do a big attack. And yeah, depending on who you play as, you pick, like, yeah, they give the bad guy talking to.
Right.
Like,
yes.
like Akira just went. It was like, you know, you're full of it, basically.
That's good. That's good.
You told him off for sure. Apparently, like, because it's hidden bosses and all these, most of these chapters, right? Before you do, like, the first fight of the final boss, like, you can go up to him, and then if you can just walk back down, and if you do that, he'll send a super boss after you.
Yeah, I read about that. I didn't try it myself.
I didn't even think that the game would let you walk back down, so I didn't try it at all. I was just like, time to beat the game, you know? But it's really funny if it's like, yeah, you go up to the final boss and you go, oh, no, right now he's like, coward.
You wouldn't think to just leave that screen like with unfinished business, you know? Like, why would you do that? But
so yeah, it was fun to see the characters come together. The why of it was kind of like,
agreed.
Obviously, there wasn't as much interaction as I'd expect, but like I said in my review, 2 of the characters can't even talk. And this is like, that's the one allowance I had for giving it that it's an older game, is that they probably which, you know, just focusing on having all the different options and all the different stuff rather than giving the characters a bunch of scenes together.
I mean, it's already so ambitious, you know, it's already trying to do so much, like, and does accomplish so much.
They've had the character development in their own story. They don't need
Yes, exactly. That's right. Yeah.
It's just that they're like, I don't know why I'm here or why you're here, but let's figure it out.
Yeah. Well, it's funny like that we talk about that, like, oh, they don't really interact in the final chapter, and it's the kind of thing, you know, I guess this is my chance to bring up Octopath. Like, Octopath does that same thing as well, right? Thank you. Where, like, I think the individual character stories are fine, they're interesting, but then when the characters come together, there isn't really that interactivity. And so that same thing kind of happens here. And it's not, again, because the characters are so fleshed out in their own chapters, more or less, like, it's you already feel like you know them so well that you don't necessarily need them to interact. It would have been nice to see a little bit more, maybe. I was just sort of
expecting it, but then I was like, oh, whatever. Like I said, 2 can't talk.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, so I don't know what they were going to say, like, beep boop.
So, Paige, just because we're almost at an hour and a half, where do you kind of put this game? Maybe comparing it to other RPGs you've played. I know you were higher on it than I was, obviously, but like, what's your kind of lasting impression, or, you know, when you think about it again?
I gave it an 8. I was previously like seeing it a 9. It was just that the overall story didn't quite click it for me, and it's pretty story focused. I know, like, the boss man wanted to, like, you know, how do you feel compared to people who say it's an all-time classic compared to these games? I'm like, I haven't played most of the classic games, so, you know, like, my thoughts on it weren't relevant to what, like, I didn't hear about the game until the trailer for this remake. Yeah. Like, I had no outside opinion.
And I think that's a lot of people. Like, a lot of people, this was their first exposure to the game was when they first debuted that trailer.
Like, to me, it wasn't. Didn't know people considered it a classic, or didn't think it. You know, didn't know. No one else's outside opinion had any influence on me because I didn't know it. So I was just really impressed. Like, you know, there's like some of the stories fall flat, but I love the variety. Like, you know, present day Wild West. You know, Japan's huge. Yeah, I really like it, and the combat system is really fun too.
I think that I might like this game coming back to it later than I did when I initially played it. I suppose, like, there was for me a lot of hype behind this game because I had heard about it before and had read about people just loving it and being so happy that it's finally coming over, getting recognized and all that stuff. So maybe I went into it with overly high expectations, but just parts of it didn't land for me. Like, I like I like the kind of classic RPGs that came out around this time a lot more than I like this game. Like I
Mm.
like the kind of sweeping adventures and narratives, these big journeys of Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger. And when I compare those, and yeah, those are all time classic games,
I
and you can't really compare that to this.
yeah, I
It's such a
like
different
this.
thing.
Yeah, I like this presentation a lot. Like
Yeah,
just
yeah.
the you get to like experience, even though yeah, combat system might be the same. There's completely different things like stealth or traps or
Mhm.
so it's
You do get a lot of variety in each
yes,
chapter, right? Like they all present
yeah,
kind of a different story, a different mechanic. I guess for me, like I prefer an RPG that has kind of everything as one big story as opposed to
mm,
separate stories. Like I think that might just be my preference as a someone who is appreciating story and literature and media. Is I like a longer novel that tells a more epic story as opposed to kind of bite-sized,
um,
albeit interesting, but just they don't. There's no kind of cohesive whole to it all, and that
mm.
that was missing for me.
Well, and the music is really good. So that's
It is fantastic, and
it's
I,
very
I
good.
had I had to
And yeah,
conclude with that too.
the,
Yoga
the
Shimamura.
visuals, like the boss fight that we looked at in particular, see the difference was the boss fight in the distant future, like where it really like pops out and like in the
Yeah,
space
for
back like
sure.
that, and like LD effects and that look amazing.
I mean, I love HD 2D.
Yeah,
It's one of my
the only
favorite kind
bit
of
I didn't
modern
like was like
inventions.
the mountains in the Imperial
Mm,
China and like the West looked a bit whatever, but the rest
yes,
of the game was really pretty.
for sure. Yeah, I mean, visually, in terms of the presentation, even the menus they're really outstanding. They just look
Yeah, I
so
like
polished, right?
when you pause and you're for a different area, the background in the menu is a bit different.
Yeah, it's cool. Again, there's little things to notice every time you look at
Like
this game.
I think, as far as I'm aware, a lot of the people that are involved in this are part of like the original team,
I got that
so
sense
they
too.
got to put like their love into it. You know,
Yeah, and
yeah,
then you can tell why they wouldn't want to change too much because this
yeah,
is this is the game they made. They just want to bring it to a modern audience, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think again, we both liked the game. You liked it more than I did. I think that's fine. I think this is a game that is going to be a little bit divisive, even if critically, I think it's pretty good. Pretty people liked it on the whole,
How long did
but
it take you to beat?
yeah, I think in the 15 to 18 hour range, something like
Okay,
that.
I
Yeah,
took 23 hours. I got all
yeah,
the endings, but I didn't
yeah.
find all the secrets and stuff.
Yeah, I was kind of in the same boat. I didn't find everything. I don't know that I did every single ending. I did most of it,
Yeah,
but
well,
I felt like sorry,
there's basically
but 3 or 4
the
endings, I think.
three or so. Like there's the one
Yeah,
where you like play as the bad guy and do the
yes,
boss rush. There's one technically if you lose the boss fight that counts as an ending.
that's right. Yeah,
And yeah, if you don't actually recruit everyone before you go into the final boss, I don't know. Yeah,
if you don't recruit everyone, you don't get to do that second fight or
yeah, you
something
don't get
like
to do that
that.
second fight, and also um, there's a bit where you can choose. Yeah, no, if you choose just to kill him or to let him
Yes,
live,
that's right. That's right. Yeah,
that
yeah,
also different ending.
yeah.
Because
So
that's when he like turns around, he's like, haha.
so even if those are kind of, I guess, well, like mini endings or something like that,
Yeah,
not like a major different
yeah, you
ending.
don't have
Sure.
to like. You can just like have one safe point and access most of them.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess I have this kind of lingering thought in the back of my mind that maybe I was too harsh on the game,
Hmm.
and I'd like to play it again later, and maybe probably next year or something like that, and just give it another try and see. But yeah, it just didn't quite land for me. And I'm comparing it to in my mind right now something like Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which is totally hitting for me, and it is that big sweeping adventure with these characters we're getting to know intimately in this huge world and a big story. And I think I prefer that style to kind of the bite-sized things that are
No
happening
short
here.
story anthologies for you.
No, not really. And it's funny because I teach short stories as part of my job, in my literature course that I teach, and we had a dedicated short story course before that I used to teach, and I liked that. But just when it comes to like my passion, my own interest on my own, no, I'm not reading short stories. I would read longer novels, and I would play longer games. I guess that's where I'm at. So,
Well,
yeah,
I think it's also good to like be a short. Like, people always talking about I want shorter RPGs, and it's like here it is.
Yeah.
Hey,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
we're
If you're
here.
looking for a shorter RPG, if you're looking for something that can be played kind of like one piece at a time,
Mm.
or one or two nights at a
I
time, do a
think
chapter like that, it's great.
I think I beat in like 5 days. I just like sometimes I hyperfixate on something, and then like that's all I'm doing. It's just
Oh
playing.
yeah, yeah. Oh, hey, I've been there. I've definitely
Yeah.
powered through games in a hurry, often for review.
Well,
But
it
yeah,
wasn't. It was like well, we got this with plenty of time to
we had
review
to
it.
have a lot of
Actually.
time. Yeah, it was a good
Yeah.
lead time. Yeah,
Which is good to work on guides, but
for sure.
I just got so into it. I was like,
Yeah,
I was just
yeah.
really enjoying it so much, And then even when I got to the point where I was getting a bit tired, I was so near the end. I just wanted to get to the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think that'll do us for a live spoiler cast, a little mini kind of what we've been playing earlier on there. Paige, anything you want to plug? Anything you're working on right now before we wrap up here?
I make no promises. And
It's probably the safest way
yeah.
to go. Um, I've got a review for a game coming to Switch. I don't think I can talk about it yet. It did come to other platforms, so the Switch version is the new part of it. That's coming out mid next
So
week, so stay tuned.
it's always funny with the review embargoes. Like my last review was RPG Time, and it was like they put on there don't show the people on your friends list option that you're playing it.
Yeah, yeah, I get that a lot. I get that a
And
lot.
it's like the game already came out on
I
Xbox.
know. Yeah, that's right.
Uh,
Isn't that funny?
Actually, that was my first time having a Nintendo embargo, and like they have a whole system. It's not just like
Oh yes,
not just turn off. Your friends can see what you're playing. It was like, yeah, a
it's
whole like
very involved.
password
It's
system. Yeah,
it's very involved compared to codes for other outlets. That's
yeah.
definitely true. Um,
Um, so I just played it. I just played that other game on that same account that I used, where it's like I don't have any friends, and nobody can see that I'm playing it.
Right, smart, yeah. So if people are on my friends list that are listening, and I accepted your friends request, the reason you never see me is because of all the review embargoes. It's not
Yeah,
because I'm not playing; I am playing a lot. But yeah, I usually just turn off visibility often for things like that. But so I've got the one review that I can't quite talk about yet, but stay tuned for that next week. I did post two reviews today actually, or one last night maybe. One for a platformer called Rite, Rite. Pretty simple, pretty basic. If you're into kind of single screen platformers, you might dig it. That's on NWR. And then my Gundam review, I talked about. You can see the video on NWR TV. I shared it on Twitter as well, so have a look at that one. Let me know what you think. And then, yeah, I think that'll do us for this week. I'm not sure what we've got planned. I was thinking in my mind today, we should probably have another mage planning session to hammer
okay.
out what we want to take care of the next couple of months. But obviously, we'll do a Trails episode in September with Trails of Zero coming out.
Is that coming out in September in your regions?
What's that?
I was going to say, I think the Australian release wasn't till October.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, I mean, it's end of September for us. It's September 27,
Yeah,
I think. So we'll
that's
do an
right.
episode on that
I
for
had
sure.
I had a budget cut it, so
Yes, I remember you saying that in the Slack chat.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there'll be other games. I'll probably talk about PAX West in the week after I come back from that. We've
At
got.
some
I'm sure.
point, we'll finish Xenoblade.
Oh, never. Yeah, I know you guys were chatting
But yeah.
about
Oh,
a Dirty Mage crossover with
I
that
only
too.
just got to chapter 5 because I hadn't played it for 12 days.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm covering so many reviews. I played to the end of chapter 4,
Yeah,
and when I pick it up again, it'll be chapter 5. So
yeah.
I'm very excited to get back to that. Maybe the end of next week or something. But yeah, I think that'll do us for this week. So thanks to Paige for hosting. Thanks everybody out there for listening. If you haven't already, please leave a comment, leave a review for our Thirsty Mage podcast on however you're listening to us, Spotify, any kind of podcast app helps with visibility. Tell a friend about the podcast, anything like that. That would be awesome. And we'll talk to you next week. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.